Hey everybody, so I did not announce myself as per usual, but this is the time that I have. So I am going to drop in for a few minutes today and talk about the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. This is happening 9 degrees in Aries. So this is important because there's a few things happening at the same time. First, it's the last of a series of eclipses that began in April of 2023. So it's the end of a 2-year cycle. And that is the jumping off point of a foundational period where now we have initiation. We have the action. So we've had the initiation, now we have the action. Hey, Justine. So it's a jumping off point. So for many of us, we were in training when it came to figuring out us versus them. Who am I within a relationship? Individuality versus cooperation, the Aries Libra axis. We're wrapping up the deep lessons in the self versus the other. And figuring out, have we learned some measure of cooperation, or are we still in a mode of competition? Because Aries and Libra can show us both. I mean, this is where we naturally have Aries, Mars, and Libra Venus opposing. And so there is that tension that comes with an opposition. And we can be against each other on opposing teams, or we can have agreement, we can have cooperation, we can have harmony, we can come to the middle, and we can both get what we want and need. So we've learned, who are we in ourself? Because if we don't know who we are in ourself, it's very, very difficult to have a functioning relationship, because we'll be looking for the other person to fill in what is not their responsibility in our life, for our security needs, our material needs. We'll be putting expectations on another, and this can be in any variety of relationships. We'll be putting expectations on another that are not their responsibility. If we're not in our full sovereignty and able to manage ourselves, support ourselves, manage our own feelings, if we're not in our own mastery, then we are going to try to outsource that to in some fashion. So we've looked at, how can we have better relationships by being a more well-rounded, functioning, masterful individual? Because that comes first. You can't get the relationship first. This is where we go wrong in Libra, especially if you have a lot of planets in the seventh house or planets in Libra. Oh, Mars in Libra is particularly guilty of this. We want the people first. We want the rewards first. We want, because Libra is, what comes after the self, what comes after assertion, what comes after going after successfully and getting what you want. That's the prize. That's the relationship, the person, the situation or condition. And we really, really want the rewards, the people, the attention, the relationships before we feel motivated or able to move forward or get what we want. When we have planets in Libra, seventh house, particularly Mars in Libra or in the seventh house. So we've learned that it doesn't work that way if we've learned our lessons. It doesn't work that way. We can't get the paycheck before we do the work and have the rewards before we prove ourselves. So we've had this process of proving ourselves to ourselves in the sense that we know that we are going to what we are going to do. We know ourselves better. We've tested ourselves. We've been tested. So we know what we're made of. That's what this eclipse brings us to. We know what we're made of. And if we find we're lacking, we have some grace to work on things. So we have Mercury and Venus going back into Pisces. Mercury goes into Pisces today. Grace, grace, grace. Spaciousness, forgiveness, room. We don't have the deadline breathing down our neck. We have Mercury and Venus backing up and then moving back forward through Pisces. It's more of a gentle cry, a gentle acceptance or surrender. Because some things we're learning that when we are balanced, when we come into a good balance of masculine and feminine forces within ourselves, proactive and receptive forces, aggressive or harmonizing forces. So you don't want to eliminate one or the other. And that's what we get into in society a lot. We get into phases or burps in culture where we want to stamp out or eliminate one side or the other. The passive or the aggressive force is the masculine or the feminine force, and because that's where we think some kind of success is going to be achieved, and that never works. It's about balance. If you're off on one end, or if you're extreme on one end, you don't win by completely eliminating the other side. That is an unhealed, unexamined, unevolved opposition. We're looking at this with the Venus Mars axis. You have to invite the other side. You have to invite the other balance, the other chemistry into it in order to have that equilibrium, that equanimity. So we get caught up in this idea that we only have one set of abilities available to us. It's either the masculine abilities or our feminine abilities. And we're so much of the time in just one or the other. Where the solution lies not in eliminating the other one and just leaning into or doubling down on just the tools, the limited tools, ways that we have, but inviting in that other side of our personality, that other side of our nature that is the balance, whether that be a more active or passive side of yourself. So it's a wake up call that lets us know that unless we are masterful within ourselves, unless we want to be the kind of partner that we want to be with, we're not going to have the relationship that we want. We can't get the reward. We can't get the people. We can't get the prize up front before we've proven ourselves. So, um, with Mercury going into Pisces today, on the eclipse day. So it was in Aries while the actual eclipse was happening and then moved right after into Pisces. Kind of did a little bit of both. Had that wide conjunction to the sun and the moon initially, and then now it's gone into Pisces and is conjunct to Neptune. It brings this more full-bodied awareness of what something that has occurred or that's from the past or something that is ongoing that has not been it's not been put to bed. It's unfinished business. We get a lot when it comes to awarenesses that can help us to finish business. And whether that means we close something out or we bring it into a new spiral, it depends. It's different for everybody and different for different situations. But there are so many of us that are in our wholeness now, in our completeness, in our sovereignty. Particularly if this eclipse, the beginning eclipse, had a significant aspect to your personal planets, like it did to mine. It was at 29 degrees Aries in April 2023, directly opposite my 29-degree Libra moon. So it's an extraordinarily personal set of eclipses for me. So look at your planets. Did you have anything at 28 or 29 degrees when this particular set of eclipses began in April of 2023? Because it will be that planet or point that is showing what the main heart or part of the journey was for you over this last 2 years, learning about how to have good relationship, but only after we have good relationship with ourselves. So today, was it 8 degrees? 9 degrees. The sun and the moon are at. I'm going to try into my Venus. How lovely. Trines are always good. Yes, Nat, personal planets and points at 29 degrees. Yes, because that was in April 2023. That was the beginning eclipse. That was the eclipse that began this particular set of eclipses along the Aries Libra axis, and today we wrap that up. So look also, what do you have around 8, 9, 10 degrees in any sign? That is what is receiving the brunt of the lesson that's incoming right now. And today's solar eclipse in itself is all about knowing yourself and getting right within yourself, not worrying about another. How do we fit in with another? Are we going to get another? Not worrying about the prize, worrying about the shape we're in to get what we want. Giving ourselves a tune-up. We're planting seeds of looking at how have I been behaving throughout my life or a certain period of time where I've needed an oil change. I've needed to throw some stuff out the windows because my car is completely overloaded. How have we beleaguered ourselves? How have we been carrying aspects of self, issues, problems, stories that are weighing us down, that are keeping us from getting where and what we want? That means, how are you keeping yourself back? There's nothing in these eclipses that are talking about other people doing things to us. And how do we deal with that? We look at, what are you doing to yourself, and how does that keep you from coming into the kind of relationship or harmony or cooperative life that you really want? Our authenticity has everything to do with it. Because if you're after the other first, if you want that first, you are not in your full appreciation of yourself. If you need somebody or something else, it's not about one, it's not about choice, it's about need. And so much of the time, we'll just take what we can get. We'll settle. We will absolutely settle if we're partnering in romantic relationships, in business relationships. We'll settle if we don't feel like we deserve all that we deserve. And that leads to all kinds of problems. So if we really learned our lessons along this set of eclipses, we can't settle for less, even if we want to. Because I think that's a legitimate thing, that there can be parts of us that want to settle for something because it's easier, it's convenient, it feels good, it satisfies us on one level, it does this for us. But when you look at it, it's not It's not a full meal. So we don't accept breadcrumbs anymore if we've gotten the memo with these axes, these eclipses along these axes since April 2023. We won't accept breadcrumbs. It's insulting. And recognized how we ourselves, if we have not been in our own wholeness, maybe we have also been somebody, or maybe we've been the person that's been showing up with breadcrumbs. Because we may want something, a job, a relationship, something, but not be entirely ready or healed or available. And so how might we be involved with somebody or another that might be settling for that? So loving ourselves, choosing ourselves first, that always results in the best for the people around us. Loving yourself in a selfish or narcissistic way, that, I mean, like a nasty, bad, selfish way, that is not the kind of thing that results in good things for the people around us. That's not real self-respect. That's not real self-love. That's just taking the easy way out and being a turd. We're looking at how do we actually authentically put ourselves first, which is a risky thing. And it requires a lot of guts, a lot of times, because we're putting ourselves at risk when it comes to not being liked, being judged, being ostracized, being looked at differently, having to retrain people how to treat us. Sometimes it's easier to put on a mask. Oh, most of the time it's easier. Until it's not. So if we're not being authentic or real with ourselves, we can't be authentic or real with another. We can't do it. And most of us don't, I think most people don't understand what authenticity really is. We think we know. We think we know. And maybe cognitively we know, but most people don't really, really know. Authenticity is not pointing out bullshit in others or in the world. Authenticity is transparency. It's being honest about your feelings and what you're really thinking, what's really going on with you. It's being vulnerable. And a lot of times we mistake total invulnerability while we are telling others why they're so full of shit as actual honesty and authenticity. It doesn't have anything to do with us actually showing up in ourselves at all. So you have to work through your shame issues and your rejection issues, your abandonment wounds, before you can be really yourself. You have to work through those things first because you can't be really honest. Your authentic yeses and your authentic nos can't be authentic. They can't be real unless you're ready to be on your own. Honesty requires independence. If you don't have independence and if you can't support yourself, you cannot be honest. You can't be real. You will mute yourself. You'll say yes when you don't mean it, no when you don't mean it, because it's way, way too risky to be really straight about everything. If you can't support yourself, you can't be honest. You can only go as far in your self expression as those that support you, or that keep you, or that pay for your life will allow. And for some people, that's really safe. That's what they prefer because everything's known within those parameters. And if we have codependency in us, we may choose that. We may choose relationships that allow a very narrow bandwidth of self expression. And it allows, when we choose those relationships or conditions or situations, it allows us to rock our stories. There isn't room to grow. There isn't even any room to make mistakes. Mistakes are an opportunity to learn. So when we're dealing with codependency, or we can't support ourselves, or we're dealing with sensitivity issues, unhealed trauma, we can gravitate to people or situations, bosses, jobs, conditions, with their beliefs, political parties, teams, movements that offer that false sense of safety, that very narrow bandwidth of self expression. But we don't get to grow. You have to stay regular, predictable. But those kinds of situations, when we make those kinds of choices or choose those types of lives, relationships, we don't have to think for ourselves. We are turning our destiny, our opportunities over to another. And that can be a very romantic idea. But unless you are healed yourself and you can make a good decision about who you want in your life, who you want to attach yourself to. I think my light just went off. Did it unplug? Yes, it did. Start my light again. Unless you have pretty good discernment or real good discernment. We tend to choose things that keep us in that safety zone. So we have to make a good choice up front. We have to understand what something is, what the difference between something is. If you haven't dealt with your trauma or your shame issues, you can't make a good choice about people, situations, conditions, relationships, because your trauma colors everything that you see. It affects your decisions. It drives your decisions. So with Mercury going into Pisces, Venus already in Pisces, and this focus on balancing masculine and feminine forces, passive and aggressive forces, Aries Libra eclipse here since 2000, Axis eclipse since 2003. We have unconditional love, Venus, and deeper understanding, intuitive understanding, the kind of understanding that is more than just cognitive, it's more than just intellectual. Because a lot of us, especially if you got hard moon, Mercury aspects, or moon Uranus, we can we can struggle with going between head and heart, or having different aims, desires on different levels of self. Like our head can tell us one thing, our emotions or our heart can tell us another, and we can get into a terrible analysis paralysis or an unsolvable conflict when it comes to being able to make a decision or know what something is or know what we want. And so we can make a lot of progress with that, with this particular eclipse, and then Venus and Mercury being in Pisces at the same time. We're bringing our head and our feelings, what we think and what we feel, into alignment. And that's when we can feel that we can really know what something is, where we have an answer and it's solid. We don't have to ask for another opinion. We don't have to second guess. We don't have to back up. We just know. We know. We know. We don't need anything else. That's a good place to be. That is the solution for ambivalence. And with people with a lot of planets in 12th house or in Pisces or Libra or 7th house placements, we can get so caught up in ambivalence. Ambivalence will keep you stuck for decades if you can't see your way out of it. And the root of it is always going to be one part of you wants this, says this, needs this. One part of you needs that, says that, wants that. And we just go back and forth and back and forth. And we can never have the confidence that we know what something is, or what to do, or what the right answer is. So we get some of the right answers this particular season. It's my mom's new dog. My girls are still reacting to her like crazy. We get good answers. Livy, No, sunrise. Sunrise. Don't embarrass mommy. She will. She will. She totally will. She doesn't speak English. Sunrise. Shh. We may have to wrap this up early. So there's a head and heart alignment that can make us be able to take that leap of faith, like on the Fool card in tarot. We're stepping off the cliff, and you can interpret it as, wow, he's a stupid dumbass. He's just going to fall right off because he's not even looking where he's going. Or you could interpret it as he's taking a leap of faith. And even though the next step isn't apparent, he knows that it will show up for him. So we get out of being a fool and just taking steps that have us falling down into a pit of karma. And we figure out how to take steps with the confidence and the security that can help us to understand through asking or having faith in what's bigger than just what's in front of our head, our face, in our head. Pisces stuff. Being open to, asking for, inviting guidance. That if you are not in alignment, you are not sensitive to. It'll strike you on one level, but the other level will find a way to excuse it or explain it away or fear it or not understand it or not get it. Sometimes it's just completely over our head. But when you're in a place where you're not wrestling with your conscience because you do what's good for you, and only every time, and you're not wrestling with your conscience anymore, you're privy to all kinds of sensitivities and information where previously your identity and trauma sensitivities wouldn't let you have access to. So our fake sensitivities can transform into actual divine sensitivity. So, all right, that's what I got. I have to go and tell my girls to be quiet, let them outside. I'm going to switch over to Instagram in a little while, guys, if you are looking for more. So have a fabulous eclipse. And I will probably come in and talk about this a little bit more tomorrow. Yes, I'm coming. I know.